Okay, here's part D. We're taking measurements of temperature here, and we have three 125 milliliter Erlenmeyer flasks labeled A, B, and C. The one labeled A is full of water that's just sitting out at room temperature. And the temperature reading is hard to see. Let's see if taking the background out helps. Come on, Zoom. There we go. All right, so reading this thermometer, you can see the scale. Write down the temperature in degrees Celsius with the appropriate amount of significant figures, and that's flask A at room temperature. Now for flask B, it's been chilling in some ice water. So there's the cold water in the flask labeled B. And the temperature. You can read that with the scale, record that on your data with the right number of sig figs, and there's your temperature of the cold water in degrees Celsius. And now for the warm water that has been heating on a hot plate. This is flask C, and this temperature on the Celsius scale, you can read that. Okay, record your temperature data. And there's the first step for part D. Okay, that was actually everything you needed up through step 7. Now for step 8, it says add 2 drops of food coloring to each flask. Record your observations. So we'll go back here to flask A with the head room temperature water in it. 2 drops of food coloring. And we'll just watch what happens here for a minute. You can see the food coloring does not mix with the water instantaneously and completely, but it's sort of swirling around and spreading slowly. There's still a concentration of the food coloring right in the center where I dripped it in, and there's still some clear water along the sides. Now if we waited long enough, it would be uniformly green eventually. Now let's move to the cold water and see what happens when we put the food coloring in here. Two drops. 1, 2. There's some condensation here. I'm just wiping away so you can get a better view of what's happening. And now we'll see what happens in the hot water in flask C. With 2 drops of the same food coloring. 1, 2. Okay, that completes part D for measuring temperature, and that also completes all of the videos with the procedures for this lab. You should be able to collect all of the data and observations that you need, and now it's up to you to finish any calculations and work on the post-lab questions.